The second part of this chapter is about Denver leaving 124 and going to find some help. So we get some details here. It has been a dozen years since she left 124. So she has to figure out how to get around town. And as she starts walking, she realizes she kind of knows the way. She sees some people looking out at her. One woman waves at her and then recognizes her. So she's shocked to see Denver out walking around because no one has seen her for a long time. It makes Denver feel self-conscious. Then she hears men coming up behind her, which immediately startles her, and she worries about, she remembers, I'm sure, the men who came in the yard, the stories about how they came to try and take them, which is what caused Beloved to be killed. So she immediately thinks, what should she do? Should she cross the street? Should she run? And then pretty soon she realizes that they are two men, Negro, and they're respectful to her. They touch their caps and they say good morning. She's encouraged by how easy that was. It was just a normal interaction between people. So she starts to look a little bit more pointedly around at the things that she's passing. And she sort of notices too, like how small everything seems. I'm sure you probably may have memories of this, like going to some place when you were a child and then going back much later and how everything seems so tiny and just sort of simple, or, just like when you're a kid, everything seems so big. So she kind of notices that sort of phenomenon. And then she gets to Lady Jones's house. So we find out that this is where she's headed. Lady Jones was the woman who sort of had a little school for Black children, and so she's going here. So then Denver goes up to her front door and peeks in the window, and she knocks on the door. Lady Jones goes to the door expecting somebody with raisins. So we're going to find out that Lady Jones had volunteered to make a raisin loaf, like a sort of a sweet bread, to take to a social. And she didn't have any raisins, and so somebody was going to be bringing her raisins. And so this is who she thinks is at the door. We get some background here about Lady Jones. In fact, we have a lot of information about Lady Jones coming on the next 2 pages, which we really haven't had before in this book. So we find out that her husband had died, that Lady Jones is losing her sight a little bit, and so she's not keeping the house as clean as she used to. She wants to make a raisin loaf just to remind everybody that she can still do it, but she also doesn't want to have to because it means beating batter by hand. I mean, this was in the old days, and so it's a lot of work, and she's not sure she's up for it. So she recognizes Denver right away. She notices that she's dressed like a chippy. This is a sort of a derogatory term used to describe women that kind of look like a prostitute. Now, I don't think this necessarily would be an accurate description of Denver. I don't think she looks like a prostitute, but I do think she probably is sloppily dressed, isn't maybe properly covered. If I think about just the kind of clothes they have and the fact that they have no money, she may not be appropriately dressed. That's kind of how I would interpret that. She sees, I think this is an interesting thing that Lady Jones notices. She sees everybody's child in Denver's face. So Denver is, it becomes a symbol of innocence here. She is 18 or 19, but her face looks like she's 12. So it shows how vulnerable she is, and that is why a woman would see everybody's child in her, because all parents, male or female, recognize vulnerability in a child. And so that's what she is noticing here. Lady Jones pulls her into the house. Denver's anxious about being there, but she knows she needs help. And so she asks what brings Denver there, and Denver doesn't answer yet, but Lady Jones makes them some tea. So here we're having a lot of background on Lady Jones. This is the first time we've learned much about her, and these could be quiz questions. Lady Jones is a mixed woman. So that means that she has a parent who is black and she has a parent who is white. So we can assume that she was the product of a master and a slave. She has gray eyes and yellow woolly hair, and she hates her hair. She had married the blackest man she could find and had 5 rainbow-colored children and sent them all to Wilberforce after teaching them all she knew right along with the others who sat in her parlor. Her light skin got her picked for a colored girls' normal school in Pennsylvania, and she paid it back by teaching the unpicked. So because she had a lighter complexion, one advantage was she was allowed to go to school, but she still doesn't like the fact that she's mixed and she doesn't like her hair. So because she was fortunate to have an education, that's why she teaches the other children. We get some more background about the community. The colored population in Cincinnati had 2 graveyards and 6 churches, but since no school or hospital was obliged to serve them, they learned and died at home. Lady Jones believed in her heart that except for her husband, the whole world, including her children, despised her and her hair, despised her even. So she does not have a good self-esteem. She believes that people have been saying mean things about her because she's mixed. And so because of that, she disliked everybody a little bit because she believed they hated her hair as much as she did. So it just shows that she's a wounded person too. So she gives Denver tea with sugar. She drinks it down. And then she asks about Denver's family, and Denver just spits it out and says, I need work. And, Lady Jones is shocked, and she says, well, what can you do? And she says, well, I can't do anything, but I could learn. And she says, what do you need extra for? And Denver says, food. My ma'am, she doesn't feel good. And Mrs. Jones says, oh, baby. So she did not know it then, but it was the word baby said softly and with such kindness that inaugurated her into the world as a woman. This is ironic, but it's such a sweet thing to say. The trail she followed to get to that sweet, thorny place, what an interesting juxtaposition of opposite words, was made up of paper scraps containing the handwritten names of others. Lady Jones gave her some rice, 4 eggs, and some tea. Lady Jones also told her that no one would be able to pay her to do work that they did for themselves, but that if she needed to eat, all she had to do was say something and she would be fed. So sure enough, people start dropping off food. And every time food gets dropped off on the stump in front of their house, there's a little note or a name for who sent it. And then Denver goes and returns it and says, thank you. So all throughout this time now, she's sort of getting connected to the people in town, which is how she's becoming part of the world of women. They all know Grandma Baby Suggs. They tell her stories about her grandmother. They show her things that her grandmother has given them, like a embroidered pillowcase. One person says that she wrapped Denver when she was just a baby. So they all are really fond of her. In the meantime, as the food comes in, Beloved becomes more and more of a monster. She's screaming. She's curled up on the floor crying. She runs her fingers over Setha's teeth. At one point, there's a description of Beloved standing over Setha, looking at her mother, and Setha, it looks like a teething child. So it's like they've completely reversed places. All of this is a very horrifying description. So even though the food is obviously what they need, it is empowering Beloved to be even more of a devil. Denver serves them both. Meantime, Beloved's baby, or Beloved's belly, is protruding like a winning watermelon. So she's looking more and more pregnant. There's recognition here that Denver sees that what Setha is doing is trying to make up for killing Beloved. And she also acknowledges that Setha's greatest fear is that Beloved might leave, which also was Denver's biggest fear. I have a note here that this could be evidence for a paper. This is some information that I think is really important about just the legacy of slavery. She knows that like baby Suggs died and Stamp saw, and Paul D is trembling because of all the trauma that has been in their lineage because of slavery, that anybody white could take your whole self for anything that came to mind, not just work, kill, or maim you, but dirty you so bad you couldn't like yourself anymore, dirty you so bad you forgot who you were and you couldn't think it up. This is good evidence for an analytical paper. The best thing Setha was her children. This is what Setha believes. I also starred this because this line, that like what your best thing is about yourself, is going to come up again later. Whites might dirty her, but not her best thing, her beautiful, magical best thing, the best part of her that was clean. This would be her children. And nobody would list her daughter's characteristics on the animal side of the paper. So Beloved has now fat feet, and she's just staring only at Setha. So things are not getting that much better. Denver decides that she has to do more. So we have a shift here. She needs to go actually find some work. She's keeping them alive and they're ignoring her. Somebody has to be saved, and unless Denver got work, there would be no one to save. It's a new thought. I underline this with squiggly lines because it shows that she's maturing.